Philip Kennedy Johnson, Brandon Peterson, Will Conrad, Max Raynor, and Miguel Mendonca pit Superman against Mongul one final time as the last battle of Warworld begins and the fate of the Fire of Olgren hangs in the balance. Philip Kennedy Johnson brings his epic WARWORLD saga to a close in a brilliant oversized issue that wraps up the storyline in grand cinematic fashion, giving us one last brawl between Superman and Mongul while also continuing to explore Superman's inspiration on Warworld and its people and the changes he has brought to them. The Authority, who have just been fantastic throughout this entire event, get most of their stories wrapped up here, with a few being left kind of open-ended, like Lightray and Omax, who will no doubt be going into something a little later on in Johnson's Action comic run, especially Lightray, who gets a little bit teased about stuff she might know now that might be important later on. Johnson really made everything feel so big and expansive and meaningful, including these side characters, so I'm looking forward to seeing where they go from here, and hopefully they don't just disappear and go back into the ether like they did before they were brought back for this event. Setup for upcoming storylines also took a big chunk of the back half of this issue, with Johnson expertly putting Krillux on a mission for revenge, something Superman will definitely have to deal with sooner or later, being that he is basically a Kryptonian, he's a Velosian with superpowers now, along with an army of other Velosians who have superpowers, which could turn everything into another War for New Krypton-like situation, and if Johnson's future state stories end up coming true, that could might well happen, with WARWORLD Saga being part of Future State already, so maybe he just continues the stories and we get to hear more about the future of these families and the future of the House of L that we saw in those stories in Future State. Superman's inspiration on Krill is interesting, since if he does become a villain for Superman, which he kind of is at the end here, it's kind of like an uneasy alliance, it will be one of the few villains who actually respects what Superman stands for and understands why he does it, yet still chooses to go against it. So that would be quite an interesting take on a villain for Superman, and I would be intrigued to see that play out a little bit more. Brandon Peterson, Will Conrad, Max Raynor, and Miguel Mendonca come together to deliver a spectacular finale for WARWORLD Saga, painting the final battle with intense fervor and tension and dazzling bright colours that engulf the dreary settings of Warworld. The final pages also depicting Superman's return to Earth and to Lois were beautifully rendered and are totally poster-worthy, as is Steve Beach's killer cover for the issue, which looks like it just leapt off the side of a 1980s GMC van. Superman Warworld Apocalypse Issue 1 was a brilliant ending to Philip Kennedy Johnson's meticulously crafted saga, delivering dazzling spectacle in its action and heart and hope in its script. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10. Superman Warworld Apocalypse Issue 1 sees Midnighter leading the war zones against Omak, Apollo, Black Razor, and the rest of Mongul's army, knowing Mongul is afraid of them, hence why they are being attacked. He leads the charge for Superman, meeting his former teammates in battle as Manchester Black isn't too fazed by Lucas's inspirational speech. Midnighter reminds him that he's not actually Superman as he kills one of the warriors. Manchester thinks that he should pretend to be, since they're fighting Apollo and it's going to be hard. As Enchantress tries to take on the possessed Lightray, Superman confronts Mongul and the traitor Krillux, demanding to know why the Felosian betrayed him. Mongul tells him that Krill knows of the world's secrets thanks to being a scavenger, and the man desperately wants vengeance and none but him can give it to him. He demands Superman hand over the Fire of Olgren or Ortho and Osul will be killed. The kids tell Superman not to do it, but Superman prepares to hand it over to spare their lives. Othel, however, lunges at Mongul, who grabs the girl and kills her brother Osul. Superman rushes to the boy's aid, finding the child is dead. Enraged, Superman attacks Mongul, who says that the boy's death is on Superman's hands, telling the hero to dry his tears since he'll see the boy very soon. At the Starforge, Darling and Teacher battle Natasha and the steelsmith Leonath, with Teacher confused as to why they thought only two of them could steal the forge. Now it reveals that there's actually more than two, revealing Orphan, whose power is unleashed onto the villain. Teacher pleads for his life as the baby shows no mercy thanks to what he did to Darling, blowing Teacher away and disintegrating him. Darling is freed from Teacher's control, so Orphan reunites with the machine, taken inside of it and telling him that he'll never be apart from him again. Orphan tells Nat to wire in the reactor to the forge and hurry, since the fate of Warworld will be decided in moments, and if one of them fails, they all fail. Enchantress meanwhile tries to snap Mac and Lightray out of their mind control, asking for help as Apollo tries to kill his husband. Manchester can see Teacher's neural implants are all through Apollo's nervous system, so he's been programmed to kill them. Midnighter tells Manchester Black that Apollo's skin is impossible to cut and he's got accelerated healing, but Manchester knows he was just telling Lucas what needs to happen, since either they get them out or Apollo burns the place with them in it. Elsewhere, Superman continues to battle Mongul and Krill, shrugging off Mongul's hits as the villain proclaims that Ulgrin's fire belongs to him since it's the place of the Warzone and Mongul most of all. Krill tells Superman to give up, but Superman bashes him down, unsheathing the fire of Ulgrin dagger and telling the villains that Bila Esh called the fire from which all Warworld grew, and it's not just strength it grants, but also life. So it belongs to the bravest and best of them, and that isn't Mongul or Krill or even Superman, but Osel. He stabs the dead boy with the dagger, unleashing a bright light which brings him back from the dead. Mongul demands to know why Superman would waste such a treasure on a worthless stray, since now he will never have the strength since it's gone forever. Superman will surely die without it, so why would he choose weakness for nothing? Superman tells him that this is why he couldn't have won, demanding Mongul stand up and fight. Midnighter continues to try and stop Apollo, who easily throws the hero off of him like he is nothing. Suddenly, the wall blows open in the arena and the Justice League arrive, taking the fight to Apollo, and while Flash keeps the others off of them, Batman, Martian Manhunter and Cyborg try and restrain Apollo. Cyborg activates a needle-like device in his chest to try and get rid of all of the neural implants inside of Apollo, but the mind-controlled hero blasts Cyborg in the face with his energy beams, ripping the needle from Victor's chest and his neck as the mind control manages to fade. The League all disappear thanks to only being Manchester Black's illusions as Midnighter races to his husband's aid. Apollo wonders what took him so long as Lucas says that he spent months and killed hundreds looking for Apollo, so a thanks would be nice. The hero doesn't think that Warworld is as fun as they thought, telling his husband he loves them as Manchester reminds them that they aren't done, confronting the remaining Warzoons and Black Razor. OMAC arrives, apologizing for fighting against them since they didn't know how else to save Lightray, and she is still inside the dark version of herself, asking the heroes to help get her back. Natasha Irons, meanwhile, is in the inner sanctum of the Forge, told by Orphan that they need to replace the seed with the Genesis fragment, and a new sun will be nourished by the blood of the gods of the first world. The only problem is they can't actually get into the synthesis chamber since they'll be instantly killed by the heat and pressure. Leonarth is suddenly shot down by some of the arriving Warzoons, who demand the heroes be killed in the name of Mongul. The wounded Leonarth tells Natasha that he'll see to the reactor and it will do what it is meant to do. He asks Nat to buy him some time, wanting their work to be of some consequence. Natasha tells him that he'll have all the time he needs, returning fire on the oncoming Warzoons as Leonarth races into the chamber, hoping Natasha Irons makes it home safely. He rips the seed from its moorings inside the forge, retrieving the Genesis reactor as he proclaims that he is Leonarth of the Arthurial, the last pupil of the House of Masters, and he built the Tomb of all Kings and the Armada of the Valiant Red, but today he avenges the Warzoons who purged his people. The Forge begins to disintegrate Leonarth as he knows that he was once a conquered slave whose life in the end had great consequence. The Starforge hums to life with the Genesis power as a white sun is born, while Mongul tells Superman he will miss him when he is dead, but when he does kill him, he'll drape his bloody symbol over all of the followers one by one as he kills them. Superman smashes Mongul in the face, telling him that when the fight is over, Mongul won't want to relive it. Superman breaks his sword against Mongul's jaw, defeating him, but the villain refuses to stay down, blasting Superman with his chest jewel. Mongul proclaims that Superman is dead, knowing that his will is forever bound to him now. Suddenly, the red beam of heat vision hits Mongul as Superman, his powers returned, tells the villain that the dead will never belong to him and neither will the living. Mongul knows that he has underestimated Superman, just like the Man of Steel did when he first came to Warworld, and the Mongul before him was right to fear the Superman. Suddenly, Mongul is killed by Krillux, who thanks to the Starforge also has superpowers now, telling Superman that Mongul was the first death he was owed, and the next may be harder now that Superman had wasted the fire of Ulgrin, but he has his own fire now thanks to these powers. The other Phalosians also begin to feel their powers manifest, knowing the Superman is with them as they beat back the Warzoons. The Authority know they can win the battle as Black Razor speeds towards the forge. OMAC knows who she is going for, asking Midnighter to dark door her into the Engine City 1. Black Razor makes it into the forge, speeding past Nat and towards the sun as OMAC grabs her, tumbling into the white sun. OMAC says that he won't let Mongul undo what Light Ray came there for, as the evil soul inhabiting Leah's body is destroyed and Light Ray comes back to her own body, but OMAC is gravely injured by the power of the sun. Leah helps the injured OMAC, telling him that she is back, but she feels different now, knowing things that she didn't before, telling OMAC to rest as the Black Racer watches the couple before speeding back off into the time stream. Superman meanwhile tells Krillax that he doesn't understand why he did what he did, and the man knows that he wouldn't, since he has a family and loved ones and comes from a world where he is a hero, so how could he understand what he was driven to? He says that to kill Mongul he needed the fire, but he could only reach it if he let Mongul discover the Phalosians' ties to Krypton, giving up a few hundred rebels who had learned of Superman's legends in order to convince Mongul of his loyalty. Krill doesn't care for his people and how they died for him, since he managed to kill Mongul in the end, and that's all thanks to Superman coming to Warworld. Krill grabs Mongul's corpse, telling Superman that he has to go and take revenge on others who killed his people, thinking that it would have been easier with the fire of Olgren. He assures Superman that he counts him as a friend and ally, hoping they'll see each other again, but Superman doesn't see how that's possible. But Krill knows that it might not be, but Superman has taught him to hope. The Phalosian teleports away as Superman uses his X-ray vision to see the victory is spreading across Warworld and the Warzoons are celebrating their liberation as he reunites with Othel and Osel. Weeks later on Daxam, Tharos of the United Planets goes through his day-to-day business when his communication stone lights up. Thinking that it's Mongul, he demands his servant leave as Krillax contacts him, revealing that Mongul is dead and he speaks for the Warzoons who will not bow to Superman's law. He remembers Tharos was once a strong and ambitious senator who stood tall, but now he has become a weak-kneed would-be emperor who offered the Phalosians up to Mongul. Krill reveals that the father of the Phalosian children Tharos had murdered still lives and he is coming for him, with more power than he had before, and soon the United Planets will beg for mercy from him the same way he once begged Tharos, but his answer won't be as merciful. Back on Earth, Lois Lane writes a letter to her husband, telling him that she is missing their Sunrise Point, and she's getting used to having Jimmy spell check her articles, and John is always there to give her a speedy lift if she needs it, but she misses Clark's perspective on her articles, even when she knew what he would always say. She says John has the same effect on people as he did, with people standing a little straighter and acting a little better when he enters the room, loving that about her son since it feels like Clark is still there. Lois suddenly disappears from her office in a gust of wind as she knows nothing beats Sunrise Point, her and Clark's favourite view of Earth above the clouds as the first rays of sun wash over Metropolis in the morning. She says that when he comes back, that's the first place she wants to go with him, since the League, Metropolis, the Earth, and the stupid multiverse can have Superman back on the second day, but the first day is for them. Lois finds herself whisked up to Sunrise Point by Superman, who has returned to Earth.